Hey everybody, this is Tyson.
And Logan.
And you're listening to Dad, Bods, and Beards podcast. It's a show that gives you a fresh look on being a father, a husband, and honestly, a man being in today's world.
For people who want to have a good time, laugh, and be uplifted, thanks for subscribing and listening. Now for the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dad, Bods, and Beards. We've got a special one for you guys today. We've got a special guest that we're going to introduce in a minute. But before we get started, we have got something new, which is a new sponsor, and that's Bucked Up. So click the link in our bio, and you guys can check out anything on the Bucked Up website for 20% off.
Oh,
You like that one?
wait.
Yes, you gotta. Yeah, you're the model.
Ting!
That is.
I give you... And that would be producer Tommy.
All right, we have Shawn Finnegan here. He is a serial entrepreneur and specializes in sealing businesses by scaling relationships. I will attest to this. Mm-hmm. Shawn is a master. He knows everyone, and they're all genuine people. We were just talking about this before. His career began at AOL-Time Warner, where he opened a customer service support center in Tucson, Arizona. He managed over 750 employees during the initial earth-shattering growth of online technology. Wow. I loved AOL.
I haven't read this in a long time. I'm getting like caught up.
You're like nostalgic. Like, wow,
I'm pretty good.
Wow, I'm awesome.
I am freaking a stud. He then partnered with like-minded entrepreneurs to create a live event company that grew to bring in over $100 million in annual revenue, hosting global education for business owners. Shawn now manages key relationships for Tax Hive, where he is an investor alongside one of the biggest business inspirations, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. He is an Ignition Point podcast host, which we've been a part of.
Yeah,
it was an amazing episode.
Awesome.
And
thank you.
I've learned so much.
Yeah, you binge watch.
I really have.
I've been watching.
I've done things that I've done things I'm not proud of.
Yeah, tell us all this stuff. Yeah,
I've done things because of it, and I think in the long run, it's really going to help. And he is a contributing author in the book series with the same title, and most importantly, a girl dad.
Ooh, girl dad.
Amen to that.
Yeah. So how many girls do you have?
I have 3 girls.
Wow.
Hey, me too.
Yeah,
Half-assed.
I got
best,
one,
man.
but she's got the attitude of about 3 of them. Though.
Yeah. My oldest daughter, who's 18 now.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. She's in Thailand. She absolutely loves his daughter, and they're like best friends.
My daughter's 8, and like my daughter thought
sweet.
it was the coolest thing ever. Last time they hung out, she's like, "Yeah, Tyson, daughter." She's like, she's a teenager. She's telling all her friends, "I'm home with the teenager."
Nothing better than little, daughters are the best, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
you on
she
your
was all
toes.
nervous for Isaac because Isaac's like, I'm going to get home off my mission. I'm going to get married. And Isaac's or Lydia's like, no, you cannot get married because you don't know who you're marrying yet. You have to wait. And now she's like, well, if he gets married, I might be an aunt. And so,
Yeah. She's all.
But Shawn, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, and then we'll kind of dive deep into mental health and financing and all that kind of stuff.
I used your product today.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
Which one?
all of them. I think.
The ball wash?
Yeah, I did the ball wash, everything.
Tingly, right?
Yeah, it was amazing. All of it was. And in fact, we did a festival together on Saturday.
Dude, it was so
And, it was like grungy. I mean, we're into cold plunge and we got in the sauna and he's like, oh, I got this. It was beard oil?
Uh-huh, beard oil.
Yeah,
It
beard
was
oil.
the peppermint revitalizing hair serum.
Oh, that's a good one.
And so he gives me some of that and it was like caffeine in it. It was like
Uh-huh.
refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a big fan of your products.
I appreciate it, man.
100%.
And tell everyone about that event and how they can find it and hear Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because that's like it was like earth-shattering for me. Like I came back from home and I'm like, I love you so much, wife. Like I'm so
Yes.
grateful
Yeah.
for you. Like because of what I
Yes.
learned about myself and what I was actually grateful for. And like I've always been grateful, but dude, it's something about that just resonated with me. It was really powerful.
It made a really impact with a lot of this was a men's event that we put on, and so me and a group of people got together and said, hey, let's do a festival, and all day from like 8 o'clock in the morning until like 7 o'clock at night, and planned it all up. And we had about 85 guys show up, and it was real impact. And it was like, like we talked about, we did breath work, and in the breath work session for an hour with Here Brotherhood,
Oh yeah.
it was so emotional, and you even talked about that, having that moment where he leads you into the breath work, and he leads you in being grateful for people in your life. And so those my daughters, my wife come into my my mind, and then I go into the breath work with that, and you just feel this appreciation, and this gratitude grows.
It was like more gratitude I've ever felt for my family.
Wow.
I
I'm so
have
jealous.
never felt that way before. Like I felt love for my family. I feel that all, but this was just like everything else. It doesn't matter if I don't have a job. Doesn't matter if I don't have a business. Doesn't matter if I don't have dad bods and beards. I have my family.
Wow,
Yeah.
dude.
And if I have my family, I am okay.
Yeah.
That's super powerful.
So yeah, we had eye covers. We just talked about it. The eye covers, you could do it and you just get into the zone. And when we all turned them in, they were all wet. Like everyone, it made a real impact. There was not just as in minor tears, there was like real sobbing going on. And it's just guys and a chance to just unpack stuff going on in their life and feeling grateful.
I think a lot of guys don't realize how much they have to unpack because you're told your whole life, don't unpack. Like, don't let anybody see that.
Sure.
So when you have the opportunity and kind of like, a vulnerable space like that with a bunch of guys, like that's why I'm so jealous. Like, yeah, I was on like a fun vacation, but I'm like super jealous that you got to go and experience that. Because
So with Hair Brotherhood, so when we were doing our breathing, Michael
Yep.
and John, Tommy's brother, was walking around and touching everyone like around their chest and just letting them know that kind of center themselves.
Sure.
And as soon as whoever touched me, was Michael or John, like I just broke down even more. And I was like, I was doing that like
right? The ugly cry.
Yeah,
which
the
you're
ugly
not
cry.
you're not a
No,
crier.
that's what I mean. This was weird for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't cry. And and they stayed there for a good 2-3 minutes for me. Like it meant a lot. It was really, really cool.
So yeah, we did cold plunges, we did sauna, had incredible speakers. We had Chad speak, who is in a wheelchair. He's paraplegic, and just him being willing to talk about the hard things and what that's like for him. It really, people just absolutely loved it. Made a great impact for people.
I think a key thing to note for that event too is because obviously being in this space, sometimes we reach a lot of people that really need to hear messages like this, but sometimes we'll also reach the guy that has a lot of opinions on like male vulnerability and honesty and things like that, and says kind of what we're talking about, like, oh, be quiet, don't talk about that. There was a lot of very powerful, successful, influential people there, like men, right?
Yes.
Like I mean, that's where these relationships come from. The relationship with Bucked Up now and some other ones is just because you realize that powerful, influential, successful people, they practice these type of things because the more you open yourself up, I think the more you kind of receive inspiration, you receive connections, you receive all these things. So that's my takeaway from this, just kind of like experiencing it secondhand from you guys, is just like the secondhand enlightenment.
I can't speak for Shawn, but being a business owner and it's starting to grow and it's starting to get traction where I'm at, the stress levels are astronomically more than I've ever felt before. And so having something like that, a release, dude, I didn't know the cold plunge was going to feel that good. But after a second, I'm like, okay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is good. And then you'd get in the sauna, like the first time, like you go to a gym, the gym sauna is like 105, 110. It was 185. I walk in, I'm like, I can't breathe.
Yeah. It was like hit you in the face. Like punched in the face when you walk in there, right?
Yeah. Dude, it was just everything about it. The workout. We did a workout with the Mountain Ops guy who he flew in from Arizona.
Drill sergeant sounding.
Oh yeah.
Dude, I'm still sore.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I believe it.
I looked over and I saw you during the workout and you were giving it your all.
Yeah. I'm not very good, but I tried.
Yeah.
Whatever. I worked out with you once at it's a former bodybuilder.
Okay. Yeah.
And I worked out with you one time and I went home like, I can't walk.
No, there's lunges. They did lunges. I can't do lunges.
Yeah. Well, you need,
Yeah.
But I could do the squats, all that kind of stuff. But the lunges, I just my knees won't let me. Yeah. And then I tried to run, but Kevin, he walked with me because he has a bad ankle. And I'm kind of running. I'm doing this.
You're trotting.
You're like, I gotta watch this guy. I gotta hang with this guy. Yeah, for support. Right.
But dude, I just so you said you're going to have one in September. Max of 75 people.
Done.
Yep.
How will they be able to find that?
Yeah, just hit me up on Instagram, Finnegan Shawn. DM me, say, hey, I want to go to that thing, because we're gonna max it pretty quick. We only have room for 75 in the venue.
Logan and I will be there.
Yeah, for sure.
So it'd be great to have dad bods and beards. You guys should get up and tell your story.
Absolutely.
because I think it would be very inspiring for people.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
100%. It's just, I just being a part of something like that was just amazing.
Yeah.
I didn't know it existed.
Yeah.
And because guys need it. And I didn't know, like, we were talking, sorry, like, this is supposed
great.
to be about you.
No.
We were talking afterwards. So John put something together where you had 4 groups.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what group it was because I was talking to you.
Right.
It's like, like it's middle school all over again.
Yeah, no, I was talking because, I don't know, I really like Shawn. I feel like we have a connection.
Yeah. Amen
We're
to
best
that.
friends now.
Yeah, we are. It only took us
See you later.
a couple weeks. Yeah. So you're second now.
Yeah, I know.
It's pretty good.
No, and so we were there, and they were from all various ages, all different jobs, everything like that. And there was a younger gentleman there who's been married for a year, and he's like, I'm struggling.
Wow.
And he was like, and there was me and another guy who's been married over 20 years. And I'm like, dude,
You get through it.
you get through it,
Yeah.
and then it's like a roller coaster. It's like you're living with someone. This is brand new to you.
Yeah.
It's like it happens, and I know you want to take care of her, and I know it's hard.
Yeah.
It'll get better, and then it won't, and then it'll get better, and then it won't.
Yeah.
Like we all have different things, and they're all hard. But what you're going through right now, I went through, and then we named everyone. I'm like, we've all been through what you're going through.
Yeah, I love that. This is just like this is like the best, almost like commercial for like Dad Bods and Beards, and then Here Brotherhood and Connect and Conquer, and just like that's what we've been saying this whole time of like the more that you put out, like the more good that you put out, the more that is going to just come back to you because like you realize that we have like as human beings, as men, as fathers, husbands, as just friends, buddies, all that stuff. Like we have way more in common than you realize. Like at your core, we all have one thing or another that we're struggling with, and you talk about it one time with the right guy, and you're like, man, that felt so freaking good. Like, and it's just this snowball. So we could probably riff on this the whole episode. We'll waste it.
But the Bronson Kafusi spoke there,
Yeah.
and he talked about the old school. He's a tough football player, 6'6",
Oh, yeah.
260 pounds, and
He made me look
he's a
small.
beast. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a beast.
He's a big dude. I see.
But so he was raised with the mindset of never see him, let him see you sweat, right?
Yeah.
That used to be an old school. Don't let him see you struggle, right? And he realized pretty early on that's not the way to lead. The way to lead is to lead with emotion,
Oh yeah.
right? And be willing to do those things and talk about the hard things, because you get a much deeper connection with people and a better a better friendship and everything else, because you're willing to, bare your soul.
I love that.
You as let's say you as an entrepreneur, you have employees. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What is being too vulnerable to your employees? What is being too honest with your employees? Where do you draw that line? Because they're like, you could be really good, but all of a sudden you're like, dude, I don't know how I'm going to make my payroll. So how, like, do you tell them that? Like, where do you draw that line?
Yeah,
This is for me personally, just to know.
Yeah, so I can give you a quick example of this. So my first business I started was in 2009, which was kind of one of the worst times to start a business.
Yeah.
I wish someone would have gotten a time machine and gone back in 2009 and said, "Hey,
That's when I bought my
don't start a
house.
business." Right? Yeah. Like really. Well, actually, probably was a good time to buy.
It was perfect.
But it was a very difficult time because we're going through a recession. A lot of people, foreclosures, everything else. And my dad was a bookstore manager for 40 years. So I came from zero money,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I decided I'm going to start my own business. I don't have resources to do it. So I go out and I raise funds to do this business. So I raised 1.5 million from investors. So I met with 60 investors, and 23 of them said, "Hey, yeah, I'll give you 1.5 million." I hadn't even created a dollar yet, but according to a spreadsheet, it showed that I was going to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
So I would have to meet with them, say, "Hey, this is my plan. I'm so excited. I'm going to go make an impact." And I got 1.5 in. So I actually felt like at that moment in my life, I was the king of the world, really. Because,
Absolutely.
Sure.
like you go back to that time machine, and like that day, even on my LinkedIn, it showed that I was a CEO. So CEO, I had a great plan that showed me I was going to make a lot of money, and I had 1.5 in the bank, coming from zero.
Yeah, you're like doing pretty hot right now.
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's the other side of the story, right? Which is like Kevin O'Leary, the guy that's an investor with me in Tax Hive. He says, in business, poo-poo happens, right? And for me, poo-poo happened over the next 12 months.
Wow.
And I had this core group of employees and people that saw us going through this and trying to just figure out a model.
Yeah.
My company was live events, so we promoted these live big brands on stages. And my first event I did was David Bach, Automatic Millionaire. I promote this event, and my marketing, which is direct mail, hits a week after my event. So I have a room set with 500 people.
Oh, no.
And I'm the promoter. It's supposed to be flying high CEO. And I had 20, 30 people in the room. He comes in his limousine. There's 20, 30 people. I mean, I literally wanted to bury myself. And long story short is over a year, I lost 1.5 million. It's gone. Completely poof, gone. And not only is it gone, I'm also in debt. My house is hawked and my car is hawked. $0. And I've leveraged my stuff.
Yeah.
And for me, a rock bottom was, so like to answer your question, during this time, the employees saw it. Like I was pretty transparent with them what was going on because they were trying to work in the foxhole with us to try to figure this thing out for a year. So there is probably a line in there that could be too much, but during that time, it was like all about communication. Hey, we're trying this, but this is what it is, and really communicating through that period of time.
Now I'm curious, how'd you get out of that?
Well, so rock bottom was a Thursday night because I had $2,500 in the bank, and payroll was due the next day. Not for me and my partner at the time, but payroll was $3,500. I was $1,000 short. I didn't have $1,000 in the world. I had no leverage ability. I was going to call my dad, who was a bookstore manager, and say, "Hey, Dad, give me $1,000." I literally couldn't do it. So I took off the automatic deposit from the bank, and I prayed for a miracle on Friday morning, and a miracle didn't come. So I woke up. What that meant for me is I didn't sleep at all. Like I just sat there.
I know that feeling, though.
Dude, I remember just lying down on my bed, looking at the ceiling, knowing that the next day I had to wake up and I had to tell people who had faith and confidence in me that I wasn't going to pay them, right? So you have that level. You also have 23 people that gave me 1.5 million. That I kind of made some pretty heavy, like, hey, I'm going to go perform for you.
Yeah.
Promises to. And so you have that pressure. And then you have the pressure of me being a CEO and knowing that I'm a failure. So you talk about pounds per square inch pressure on my body. That's how I felt. It was just really miserable time. And I remember waking up and nothing comes. And I go to lunch that day with my business partner. And I'm like, have we turned over every rock? And the story is true. That my controller calls me up and say, "Hey, Shawn, I was digging through the safe and I found some petty cash of $3,000 or something. What do you want me to do with it?" And I was like, "I want you to hang on to that cash." And I literally drove as fast as I could back to the office. I picked up the $3,000 of cash and I drove it over to the bank. And I still remember, whatever reason, it's just engraven in my mind, walking into that bank with $3,000 cash and giving it to the teller, and then physically writing out checks for each individual. And it's a contract that, and then I went back. I still remember hand delivering this brown shaded check to each person that I made payroll by that much that day. Right.
Wow.
And from there, I said, dude, I got to admit that I failed on my own and I need to start building relationships in business. That's the number one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to get comfortably uncomfortable. And I had my head down and I wasn't going to networking. I wasn't building relationships. I had nothing. I was just knee deep in crocodiles. So I wasn't doing anything. So I was like, I'm going to go figure out how to, I always read that, get the right people on the bus, build your relationships.
Yeah.
So I was like, that afternoon, I literally started calling my contacts and set up lunches. And I set up a lunch the next week with this guy who was an experienced guy, very wealthy. And he sat me down and helped me do some stuff. And I actually wrote it all out on the tablecloth that we were eating at. And I took it up into my office and started implementing it. And I ended up becoming a partner to this guy who was very wealthy, successful, and him and another person that changed the whole course. So I was able to go on this crazy run where I was able to pay off the original investors back plus 20% or so in interest over the next year.
High five, man. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was a crazy, and I have many, like we all have more, of those kind of experiences.
Is that why you're you? Like,
yeah,
no offense.
That's my reason.
Is that why you're helping me?
Yeah.
And you're introducing me, and it's just like, I've never met anyone like you.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest with you, it's just like, oh yeah, I know this person. Here.
Yeah.
Here. And I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
That's why.
But that's
why
what I want to do, and that's what we've talked about.
we were just
before.
talking about this
Yeah.
of kind of like, just sitting down with you guys last week, or excuse me, week before, and then having the meetings that you've set up with Tyson and just a few other things, and I'm like, Tyson, this is what we've got to do. We've got to start networking more. We've got to start. So after I did the cold plunge and the sauna event with you guys last month, I was like, Tyson, we have got to get, because I've known John for probably about a year now,
Right.
And I'm like, dude, we've got to get more connected with this group of guys because the saying, it's who you know, not what you know, and realizing that when you meet somebody, you have similar, kind of wavelengths, similar drives and stuff. It's like, I've got to introduce you to this person.
Right.
And then so
So
I'm super grateful for this too.
Yeah, like before the meeting, before the Conquer, what's it?
Connect and
Conquer.
I
Yeah.
was there. I
like,
had a shirt.
Right. Yeah.
But I was there before Connect and Conquer that morning. I called Logan and I'm like, dude, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm inadequate for these guys. These guys are all amazing. They all have good bodies. Like, where I'm like, I have to take my shirt off, and I'm like,
Yeah. Right. Sure.
like, and all this kind of stuff. And when my anxiety hit, then all of a sudden my depression hit, and I'm just like, dude. And he's like, don't worry, Tyson, you got this, all this. And I'm like, I know, but it's just like, I wanted to make such a good impression with everyone because that's how much it means. Well, you're just awesome.
I saw you coming in the morning, and I could sense some of that. You were just kind of like getting a feel for it. And I was like, Tyson, come on over, dude. You got to meet some of these. You helped mentor a couple of young guys that you talked about, like Bias, and those
I'm going to be on his podcast Friday.
That's so cool.
Steve's. Was it Steve?
Alex. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I was sending him like names and phone numbers and pictures. I'm like, hey, go meet this guy. Go shake his hand. Go meet this guy. Go shake his hand. Like, so this is cool. But I feel like that's the perfect story to segue into what we want to talk to you about because with Dad Bods and Beards, one of the biggest things we do, and when we found our voice getting into these shows, was two regular everyday dudes that have had our own experiences and realizing that we have a lot of our primary group is dads, pretty much.
Yeah.
Young 20s up to even into like mid 50s and mid 60s.
And we have lots of moms.
Yeah.
And wives that will send it to
well,
their
even
husbands.
my wife's cousin who's in her mid 20s, she told me this last week when we were in Lake Tahoe. She's like, dude, I listened to the Tough Love episode. She's like, that was amazing. So I'm realizing, like, you're not our demographic, but like listening to it because of like the family relation and then still getting that feedback.
They can understand maybe the position of a dad.
Yeah, and so I'm like, we get messages every now and then from partners of dads and husbands, things like that, and wives are just like, hey, I didn't realize this. So we wanted to talk about your just the financial just aspect of it all, because I feel like that's probably one of the number one stresses for like every guy, every dad, every husband, father, provider of just
every day.
Every day. Right. Especially in 2024, it is just like
with my payroll and with my like just everything that I have to pay for agencies and all that kind of stuff. It's like, how am I going to do it this month?
Yeah, sure.
And how am I going to do my personal stuff because I'm not paying myself yet? All this kind of stuff. It's stressful.
Yep.
And so I have a quote.
Yeah.
It's by Forbes. It's the connection between financial well-being and mental health. Mental health and financial well-being are two important aspects of our lives that are often viewed in isolation from each other. However, the truth is that these two elements are deeply intertwined and play a crucial role in determining our overall health and happiness. So I do have a question for you because of this. How does societal pressure on men to be primary breadwinners influence their mental health, particularly during financial hardships?
So, can I give you a quick story?
Absolutely.
I've never told this story ever publicly, but this is a story I experienced in business. So I had a partner. This is years ago. I had a partner, and his former life, he was an alcoholic and had real problems with alcohol. And I'll talk about the financial side of this and everything else. But when he became my partner, he was completely didn't have alcohol, and he told me all the stories about how he just couldn't handle it. So he did the meetings and really was doing really, really well. Well, we're partners for years, and one night we're eating dinner in San Diego at the Hard Rock Hotel. He decides that night he's gonna drink, and I do everything in my power, and I try to take it away from him, literally throw it away, and because I know it's not going to be a good thing for him. And he still goes over to the bar and starts drinking, and from that moment you can see the sickness. Now this guy is a great human being. Like, he's the kind of person, you know, there's you both are best friends, so you're probably in like, if you had an issue with your family, you're calling Logan.
Absolutely.
And Logan would leave at 2:00 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
to go help your wife and your family, right? So that was this kind of person. He was that level of a guy. And it turns into this big heavy load on the partnership because he's having this problem. Conversely, if I had my problem, he would help me. But he goes down this path and it just gets worse and worse and worse, and it's taxing. Like one time we went to do an event in Vegas, and he'd been drinking, and then that night, I remember I left because I just couldn't handle it anymore. I went back to my room and I couldn't sleep, and I woke up every 2 hours looking for him. I went walking up and down the strip, seeing if I could find him if he was face down or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh.
It was just a big load. And so he decides at one point going through this, he's like, I'm going to go to South America for 6 months. So I'm kind of left with another couple of people running the business, and it taxes us to the hilt, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, we're going through all this, and then he's gone for 6 months. And so a lot of the pressure. So I finally said, you know what, this is enough. I got to end it. So I hit him up and it's like, hey, I want you to come back. I need to chat with you. And he flew back, and I sat him down and said, hey, it's just not working. This and that. And I got to part ways. And so we parted ways, and we worked out a payment, you know, for the exit. And it was like a certain amount of money. It was a lot of money per month. And I was like, hey, dude, I wish you the best. Why don't you just go back to South America, go with your family, just go take care of yourself. And the only thing I ask in the next like couple of years is you don't compete with me, right? So he's like, yeah, I'm good. Let's do this. You know, I understand. And we shook hands and did paperwork and everything and started paying the payments. And during this time, he reaches back out to me and he sends me texts. Hey, how's it going? You know, and just keeping up. Well, I'm so like mentally over it that I kind of ghost him. And he tries to come over to my place and say, hey, let's go surfing in the lake. And I say, I can't go. And just, there's multiple times he's still trying to be a friend to me during this time. And I won't engage. And, soon enough, 3 or 4 months into this arrangement, he decides to launch a business to directly compete.
Oh, goodness.
Right?
Yeah.
That's bad.
And so I was like, oh, it's black and white. This is like, we're not going to pay. And lawyers got to get involved. And
breach of non-compete. All that
so
stuff,
that's the minute the poison, maybe it was before that, but the poison started entering my veins. You know what I mean? Like the darkness that started like maybe here and got to much bigger.
Yeah.
And bigger and bigger and bigger. You know what I mean? So over like, it was like a year fighting this thing, and it started consuming us both. It was like, I hated him, he hated me. Like there was some real angst between us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I finally said, you know, I got to eventually stop this. So I sent him a text, said, hey, let's go get a drink. Go to the place to get a drink. And I'm sitting out front. He pulls up, comes out, and he like literally not in our face, but we get in a yelling match in person. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a yelling match. And I was like, but you did this. And he was like, no, but you did that. And it was like just this loud thing. And then he got in his car. It didn't go good.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And then finally, I got to the point where I was like, this is consuming my life. All I was thinking about was this guy. And I reached out to him, and for the first moment of actual real authenticity, I was like, dude, I'm sorry, man. But all this poison is leaving me. I can't do it anymore. I want to put it behind us. And I could feel on the phone, I could feel it leave him as well, right? I could feel it start to just say, this silence afterwards. And he's like, yeah, let's figure this out. So we ended up doing a settlement and paid him out a certain amount of money. And then literally not too long ago, so this is like 9-10 years ago. And not too long ago, I started thinking like my role in all of that, really started taking ownership and saying, dude, I started thinking back, this is a couple of years ago. It's like, I still had some leftover trauma involved in that experience. And I was like, I started thinking to myself, it's like, look, if I was going through what problem, he would have helped me. And guess what? He wanted to be my friend. And I was the one that ghosted him. And
that's deep.
He tried to go boating with me, and that was my fault. I said no. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just started unpacking all my stuff where I just had it from my perspective. I was like, oh, it's all his fault, right? But then I started just thinking about all this stuff. It's like, no, dude, it was actually me. I instigated. I was the problem throughout all of that. Had I either helped him or still kept a relationship with him and a friendship, I wouldn't have gone through a year of my life with pain. And so I called him up, and I went, it was like, ugh. But I called him up and I unpacked all that stuff. You know what I mean? And I was like, hey, I did this and I did that and I did this, and I just unpacked all of it. It was like an hour of just all my mistakes. And he said, here's my role in it. And he unpacked all that. And it was like, it was the most healing thing in forgiveness, and actually just really being real and being truthful with ourselves and our role in all of this. And since then, he's like a relationship like you both have. Like if I had problems with my family, I could call him up and he would fly out here from Texas.
Oh, wow.
And he would help me. Like we're that close again.
That's cool.
But it's because we actually truly forgave ourselves. Both of us, and really buried it, and not buried it, but we uncovered it, and we were real with each other, and that's why.
Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things, is be humble and know that you play a role
Yeah.
in your own misery.
Yeah.
Well, I like what you said
It's
there.
really, really good.
I like what you said, and we forgave ourselves, not just each other, but you also forgave yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge point to highlight there too. It's because you have to, like, because you said you beat yourself up over the whole situation,
Right.
It all sparked over finances and money. Like you said, it was your best friend, and that was one of the big things that when we legitimized Dad Bods and Beards, when LLC, like we went to lunch and had a conversation of like I don't want this to ever come between us, because this sparked because of the friendship. And so to hear your story, like that was like super kind of like inspiring and moving for me, of like approach everything with just that empathy and that kindness. And like, what's the big picture here?
Yeah.
So thank you.
I run into people all the time in business are like, oh, they broke the contract, I'm just going to sue them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And I'm like, are you sure? They're like, what do you mean? It's like, have you met with them? Have you tried to reach out? Have you tried to just personally talk to them? Mm-hmm. Because the only one who really wins are the lawyers in a lawsuit, right? It's like, why don't you just try it first? Sometimes they do need to go there, but it's all, like relationships win out every time if you can go that path.
Interesting. Right? Well, I'm definitely gonna be sharing this episode with somebody who's in my life, because that's a very, very similar situation that someone that I care about has gone through, like almost identical. Best friend, business partners went south, and he said a lot of the similar things of like, because I was almost kind of egging him on. I'm like, dude, go after him, breach the non-compete. I'm like, go for blood,
right?
Because I care about this guy.
Yeah.
And some of the words out of his mouth are like, but what good's that gonna do? Mm-hmm. So it's like, to him have that kind of perspective. At first I was like, oh, that's like, come on, man. Like, but seeing your perspective, like you've been through like that, there's a 10-year journey, and now you're back to where you're at now. I'm like, that's some perspective. So I'm going to kind of share this episode with him so you can hear that story, because that's super impactful. Like that was I'm glad you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
But
yeah, I'm still thinking,
because
I was like, there's a lot to that. But on a personal level, let's say men, most of us don't own businesses.
Yeah.
Most of us don't go through stuff like that. How can you help someone with I'm trying to think of the question as we do this. How do you format it? How do you help or inspire someone who's going through financial woes as a primary breadwinner in their own household? Like, let's say you have a wife that's a stay-at-home, and she's taking care of your kids, and she's working her butt off.
Yep.
And you know for a fact that she's working her butt off.
Yep. Sure.
And you just lost your job, or you're not making as much as you used to, or you know, you're not making ends meet anymore. What do you tell to that man who is working as hard as he possibly can? He feels like there's no hope. How do you get that person? How do you give that person hope? How do we help that individual know that it's going to be okay?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So one thing I do is I believe in building relationships. You heard my reason why I started that literally in 2010. Starting relationships. That's the whole reason why I meet you. Like, oh, you got to meet this and all that. Yeah. I'm a huge believer and proponent in that. But so I meet with people on a pretty regular basis. Like I get text intros. I don't think there's a day goes by I don't get someone saying, hey, you got to meet my friend, because I do that also, right? Yeah. So now I'm in the top probably list of a lot of people saying, hey, I'm going to introduce Shawn to this person. So I get that a lot. So I do lots of meetings with entrepreneurs, and I met with one about 3 weeks ago. And the challenge is sometimes you feel alone. Like how I felt, like you're just trying to figure this thing out, and you do have an incredible wife busting her butt, and you're trying to, we've been trained our whole life to provide for the family. Yeah. Right. That's our mission. Yeah. And when you're not doing that, it is very stressful. So I met with one, and it's a common thing I see. So what happens is, for a guy, this individual is like, I got this and I got that and I got that, because all you do is start stacking it up. If you're not hitting it here, you're like, what if I stack this on there and I stack that on there and stacked on there? Then all of a sudden you're wearing like 20 hats and you're seeing all these lanes in front of you. You don't know which one to pick. And really it just, you got to focus on the one thing. And you wake up every day and you see the one path. And I just see people just get so carried away because they're trying to scrap and try to do that. And
like, so we both look up at each other at the same time.
We've all done it. You're spinning this plate, they're spinning this plate. But if you just woke up, how would your life be different if you just saw the one path? And it's like, I'm going down that path and I'm charging, and I'm not going wide, I'm going deep in this one area. And we've all done that. Entrepreneurs, it's a shiny object thing. But what I see in a lot of people who are struggling is like, they just don't know. It's like, just giving them that vision is like, hey, focus here. Just stay here. This is your one best opportunity to make money. Go down that path hard.
So I'm sitting here telling him before the show, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And now he's like, you're an idiot.
Fortunately for you guys have this path, the Dad Bods, and everything, and the products you're doing are right in that path. That is in the lane.
It is.
It is. So, I mean,
fortunately, who you are is our theme.
Yeah. You have a lot of things, but they're still down this path and make an impact with men. Physically in the products, and also mentally, which I think is beautiful.
That is a great analogy, because like when we kicked off Dad Bods and Beards with Tommy as the producer, and it just like, it skyrocketed. Like we started doing the social media clips a lot better, and like we grew to like 25,000 followers on Instagram really quick. Yeah. Because I was like posting 2 times a day. I had like my like aesthetic and stuff that I was doing, and then we started getting busier with the apparel side, and then some other side. And I work with Copper Johns. And so we just kind of like, I started adding 27 different things. And then this got busy, that got busy, work picked up because I'm in construction, it's summer. And then, posts kind of dropped off, end of the day, things like that. And it's like the thing that was working, I almost kind of went autopilot with it, and it stutter stepped and it slipped up, and now I'm trying to pick it back up again, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is doing good. So I'm like, that's the lane I need to stick in over here. So that's just kind of reaffirming that for me. So I like that. So
generally in all of that, you have a cash cow that's bringing in your cash. You cannot sacrifice that cow. Yeah. You got to for all these. Yeah.
For you.
No, it's the beer.
It's an amazing product. I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean, like, I'm over here, like that's what's getting traction to the Dad Bods and Beards brand and the show is it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's Facebook, it's YouTube, it's getting the eyes on it. And I kind of just was like, let it kind of peter off unintentionally. And then, one day turns into 2 days, turns into 3 days. And then it's like, oh, this happened, skipped this. So I like that. But you can apply that in so many different areas, not just from a business perspective of like, we know how many different guys that are like trying to do 45 different things just to provide for their family. it's not because they're trying to be somebody they're not. It's because the economy sucks. I'm making better money than I've ever made in my entire life, but I don't feel like I'm in any better of a financial position because inflation has shot through the unbelievable roof.
For lunch, I went to Smith's for dinner and lunch for my family. Spent $120, and I'm like, for freaking just groceries for a couple of meals.
I was in Lake Tahoe this last weekend, and we got gas. We took the minivan. Normally, I'd take my truck, but we're not buying. Diesel, which my truck's a diesel, was $6.85 a gallon in Lake Tahoe, and I'm like, how is anybody living? And I'm like over here like sweating $3.50 in Utah.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is nuts. And then I got a sandwich in Sacramento where I'm from, and it was $17 for a 6-inch sandwich and a drink.
Right. It's nuts.
And I'm like, I'm over here I'm like, Utah sounds so amazing right now. The housing market sucks. but I'm like, someone's got it worse. Right. So I'm like, that's the perspective. I'm like, I'm not going to complain as much because, groceries out there for the week was like, I was like, this is ridiculous versus coming home, going to the store, restocking the house after vacation versus I'm complaining that I went on vacation. Right? but the point being is that like, I like that you're pretty much saying like, pick a lane and stick to it of what's working, even if it doesn't feel like it's working at the moment, because like sometimes that might be like, if you got a good stable job that's paying the bills, it may not put, thousands in your savings every month or even a couple bucks in your savings every month if it's paying the bills and it's providing health insurance, things like that, like stick in your lane for a little while and make that work for you until, other opportunities present themselves. So that's what I'm getting from that story.
Yeah. And I think what I've learned from you both is the second thing I've seen with entrepreneurs is they think everything has to be just exactly right. Conditions have to be perfect, right? Like I have a good friend in Arizona and he has a company called Rocket Lister and he's like, I want to do this podcast. And I was like, oh, go do it. Yeah. And he's like, no, I got to get the right stuff. I got to get all the gear. So
we never would have started.
I was like, we just talked about this of like our first episode was just so echoey.
Yeah.
And then the second episode, we were literally sitting on his mom and dad's couch with these little microphones. And it's like, now, like that.
Look what you guys did. Like you got Tommy running we've
been very blessed for Tom.
So I told my buddy, hey, go do this. And he had a podcast room he built, put all the cool stuff in it, and it's all sitting there. It sat there for months.
Oh no.
And finally I went down, I saw him and I was like, hey, tell me about your episodes. And he's like, I haven't started it yet. And I was like, what are you waiting for? I want to wait till something else. I said, dude, listen. We're going to do your first episode today. So I sat in a chair with him.
That's cool. That's a big episode for the first episode.
Yeah, dude, it was a great time, great experience. And we like chatted and he started like how you feel right now. It's like you get into this great experience where you learn a lot and so he felt that. And then he's like, okay, that's my start. And then he's done like, I don't know, 50 episodes and he's crushing right now. But it's generally the start that stops people.
The start that stops. Whoa.
Right?
It's true. A lot of people can't pass that first year in entrepreneurship. A lot of people you just can't because they don't realize how hard it is.
Well, and on top of that,
it really is. It's hard.
On top of that, like how many voices are also out there telling you like that's dumb.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this of like when we're like,
you tell me every day.
I remember. I remember when we were just workshopping names for the podcast that didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody about it and they're like, everybody has a podcast, dude.
Right.
Like that was the first words out of their mouth. And this person means a lot to me. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. Sometimes they do it, try to help you like out of love.
Oh yeah,
it wasn't, I'll save you a lot of headache.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the premise it was coming from of kind of like,
you're 40.
I love you.
You're a middle-aged white dude. You have a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's the joke. But it's like, now it's like, now they're wearing the hat. Yeah. Right. And he's super supportive of me or whatever. And it was more of like out of love of like, everybody's got one. Right.
So I think people watching this like, hey, just go do it. Go do that thing. Because everyone that's watching this, I guarantee they have something that has been burning on their mind, sometimes for years. And they just need to get the courage to take that step. Because that first step's going to be your worst. You're probably you bad echoey sound. The sound, it's like, you're kind of robotic. My first episodes were robotic. I was like, so tell me, what do I do?
If you were really like that, I gotta go.
You're like, you're like, welcome to my podcast.
Welcome to my podcast.
But the best part is while we may not have had the audio and the video and all that stuff done, that's where we found our voice, though.
Yeah.
Like to
For
get
sure.
kind of get
Because
like,
we had no idea what we were.
Yeah.
We thought we were just going to talk about everything.
dude, it was like literally like within 20 minutes, we
Yeah.
were like talking about parenting, and I'm like, I think this is the show.
Yeah.
Talking about
Yeah.
dads and beer.
Then
We're
all of a
like,
sudden we're like, oh, we can't share that. With
yeah,
anyone.
we're like, edit.
Yeah. And I asked you guys while you were on our podcast, I was like, why do people watch your show?
Well, I just think,
And what was your answer?
well, just we're just two regular guys that relate to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Makes
that's
it
the gist.
relatable.
I'm like he's over here like helping us promote our show on our show.
I don't know. What did we say?
Yeah.
That's exactly what you said. I think it's very relatable.
I'm like I can't remember what I said yesterday. But
Yeah.
yeah. No, but that's the premise of everything is, and that's why we wanted to bring you on here is because, you know, you've lived a life with a ton of experiences, and that's why we like to have different guests on the show is because there is, regardless of the circumstance and the details and whatever the finite, you know, information is, there is so much relatability in almost everybody's story because it can be scaled down, it can be scaled up, it can be, it can
Just like we were talking
Yeah.
about, you know, we were going to have Taft on, Corey Stevens. He's going to be on.
Yeah.
And we're going to have Mountain Ops, Kevin. He's going to be on. They're worth millions of dollars, and their stories just like we all go through stuff. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't know how much power you have or anything like that. We're all going through it. And to kind of sidetrack or the same thing is like, okay, when I was growing up, I always had envisioned where I would be when I'm 20, when I'm 30, when I'm 40.
Sure.
I hit 30 years old, so I'm 44 now. When I hit 30, I didn't have a midlife crisis or anything. I was extremely disappointed in myself. I was sad. I wasn't depressed. I was just like, I should be better than this.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to my dad about this, and I'm just like, you know, I have 6 kids at that time, and I have a job, but not really, like, it's just not a job that I love, but I had a job, I had a house, but it didn't really, you know, all this kind of stuff. It was like, it wasn't a mansion. It wasn't like, I don't have a boat or a truck or anything like that. And so I have always a mission. I'd have a cabin. I'll go boating all the time. You know, I had all these things. Like I'm going to be
butler.
Yeah, no, just seriously. Like
Right.
I am going
Yeah.
to be living like a
Yeah.
dream where I can take my wife to go to Europe if she wants to.
Yeah.
I can take my kids to Disneyland tomorrow if that, you know, that type of thing. And it didn't come to fruition. And it, you know, but it's just like I remember going and talking to my dad about this, and he was like, telling me, he's like, you got to get out of your head about where you think you should be instead of where you are, being grateful for where you are, and understanding the process. And like, you have 6 healthy kids, you have a wife who loves you, you have a room over or a roof over your head, all this kind of stuff. You have a job, even if you don't like it, you have a job.
Right.
So leading this up to this, I'm asking a question is, for those dads who want more out of their life financially, meaning not necessarily their success is like, hey, I want to take care of my family, I don't want to have to stress and live check to check. What do you say to them?
So for me, what I found is the greatest way to scale relationships in anything. Even if you have a job and you're working for a company, there's ways that you can progress and make more within the company if you're good at building relationships, right? And so the common thing I hear a lot is people are word of mouth. Like, I've built my business on word of mouth, which is excellent, but can you raise that game? So if you want to make more money, get better at word of mouth, right? So
Would that be considered ads and networking, or not network ads, or
a lot of people do
videos?
networking because you're running ads, which is awesome, but a lot of people want to have to build with just going to meet people, old school handshake kind of stuff, and that is a great way to actually make money and scale. And my experience is most people are like, here they can raise their game 1,000% higher than they are. Quick 3 examples, right? Number 1, when you go to live events, like we did a live event together.
it was amazing.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in how you show up is everything, right? So I went to an event 2 weeks ago. It was a gun range, and they had a building, And I wanted to just see how people showed up to these things because they're kind of awkward sometimes. Like I'm going to an event, there's all these, I don't know these people, and
Yeah, I
you
was
start
timid
turning
at
weird.
first, like you were
Yeah,
saying.
that's how you feel.
I stood there super awkward, and I'm not an awkward. I'm a
Yeah.
very awkward guy. But at the ice bath and sauna
Yeah,
event with you
sure,
guys, I
yeah.
stood there in the corner because I knew nobody. I was like, "Where's
Yeah.
John? Where's John? I only know
Right.
John. Where's
yeah,
John?"
yeah, sir. That's
And
how
then
it feels.
and then somebody came up and was like, "Hey, how are you?" And then I'm like,
Yeah.
and I blossomed, right?
Yeah, so- yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, now I come out of my shell,
Yeah.
right?
And
So-
I just made fun of two guys in the sauna that were wearing the same suits that didn't know each other. And,
Yeah.
and then I
Yeah.
So introverts especially, like that's just like sounds horrible. Put me in with a bunch of
Sure.
strangers and
Oh, yeah.
stuff. And so I sat by the door at this event. I just wanted to see how people came into the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the most common thing I saw was their phone because that's a safety blanket. So they would come in, head down. You want to talk to me right now where I'm looking at my phone, like that's comfortable to me.
Yeah.
Versus, so I've been really working hard on this piece, showing up with real intention. What is your intention going into that room?
love that
Right?
there.
And I feel like
showing
I
up
feel
with
like there's a portal in that door when you walk through, and that transforms whatever you want to, whatever your intention is.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, like one of my intentions would be, man, I just really want to get to know people personally and build relationships. And what is my outcome? I want to like really make friends here. And I put my literally all that distraction away, and I walk into the room, and I smack dab in the middle of the room, and I go right up to the promoter, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
I'm Shawn. Hey,
Nice.
good to meet you." And then I stand there with authority, like with excitement and energy. And what I found is like it attracts people to you.
Go there with intent. I like that.
That is really good. That takes a lot of balls. Sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of guts.
That's hard.
I think this is a safe show to say that.
Yeah. A lot of clean balls with your product. I do a lot of, yeah.
Ting.
Right.
No,
Where's the
because
ball,
I mean,
Ash?
that's scary.
It is scary.
Because when I was teaching college, there was one class, like, within sociology, you have communications. And communications, you have to communicate. And so you have to get in front of everyone. And I'd have people quit because when they found out they had to present at the very end.
Sure.
And I'm just like, people are scared to
It's scary.
share themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're, like either through trauma or stuff like that.
Afraid of failure or afraid of.
So you're telling me
Uh-huh.
the way we grow in any aspect of our life is through networking and through just engaging with people.
Yeah.
Dude, that is insightful.
I mean, if you really sit there and think about it, like it applies and I'm sitting here while you're talking, like it applies in so many different things because I've said this before, like as humans, we're social creatures. Like we like, that's the reason why you group together. Minus everybody knows that one guy that's like, leave me alone. Like wants to live
Right.
out in the sticks. But whether it's business, whether it's, faith, family, like just emotional, like all that stuff, like you do better together.
Yeah.
And so I like that of like, if you, I mean, some people have to work at it harder than others. Like some people, you just like, they just have that high energy, like high frequency, like you just feel drawn to them all the time.
Right.
Probably because they practice this a lot.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of people that like, maybe they have a trauma or they have something that has happened and that has made them more reclusive, you know, whether it's upbringing or whatever. So I like that a lot.
I think anyone watching this, your next challenge in any live room you go to, just test it out. Just go right into the middle and go start talking to someone who seems to be, and just like, hey, I do carpet cleaning. Do you have anyone in here you'd recommend I talk to? Is what my answer is. My question is. And they're like, oh, this person runs apartment complexes. You should talk to, and that, like, let me introduce you to that person, right? And you go meet the person who you should meet, right?
Yeah. Oh,
I will tell you this.
to ask.
Sean gave me hope. He doesn't realize this. I'm telling him right now. Saturday when we met, he was talking to. You were talking to someone that I looked up to, and he just said Tyson in 6 months is going to be making it. Like he said, I guarantee you Tyson's going to be making it, and it gave me hope. I'm like, what am I not seeing?
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like I need a. It's just like the networking and not like you have given me hope.
Thanks.
You like we met each other at the right time for me, and it has brought me up big time. And I feel like that's with Sean and certain other people in my life where it's just like I needed that. I didn't know I needed it, and I think it's really really cool. And it's all about just opening up and being vulnerable with people.
Well, you did it this week. So I met with Bucked Up this week. Ryan Gardner, and you watched an episode of my podcast, and you're like, I watched the Bucked Up episode, and you're like, they had some really cool things in
Really
there,
good ideas.
like what they do for ambassadors and everything else.
Yeah.
So he reaches out to me, and he's like, hey, I'd like to meet those guys, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, it's what it's all about. And so what did I say? I said, hey, well, I'm meeting with them on Tuesday. Do you want to just come and tag along?
And I'm like, yep.
And look how
And
that freaking panned out.
I dropped
Dude.
everything. I dropped everything.
And it says so much because I was like, you drove, it's an hour, right?
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
Hour and a half driving. And all I said was like, hey, I'll be able to bring you into the beginning and then introduce you. And then I don't know how long it will be. We're meeting with them about something else. But
Sure.
And you drove an hour and a half. He was like 20, 30 minutes early, ready to go.
Yeah.
He brought product to give him. Like he came prepared, and that is like, and so we get in there, and it was an awesome meeting, right?
It was.
I mean,
Well, I think the best part
I
about that,
learned
like,
a lot. That me and him, like was I telling you like how much I saw myself in him?
yeah.
And I thought, yeah, I'm just like, yeah, he's cool.
Well, and see, I like that, like what you're highlighting here, and I wanted to pinpoint is that you're like, you just asked for the introduction, and I
Yeah.
realized that like there's probably more people that are willing to give the introduction if people are just willing to ask, right?
Yeah.
It's like nobody's not. I would say like that. People are not willing or wanting to safeguard relationships as much as everybody thinks they are, right? Because it's like that's what I'm starting to realize. I mean, I'm connected with because of the connection with John. Now I got connected with Tommy. We got connected with you. I'm connected with Aaron now, and Bucked Up is going to be sponsoring Dad
Yes.
Bods and Beards, which I will say is we've joked of like. It's funny that Bucked Up, which is a massive supplement energy the way that is around gym culture, they're now sponsoring a podcast that starts with the word Dad Bods.
yeah, that is interesting.
But we're chubby, but we're like a strong chubby.
Yeah.
But I think just the cool part about this is I'm slammed at work. I couldn't make it. And I was like, which I'm glad that I couldn't make it because I feel like that you needed to be the guy to be there. Like that was amazing.
No,
And then
it was
he calls
amazing.
me.
You
He calls
crushed
me
it.
Right.
back to back like
Yeah.
3 times in a row, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking somebody's dead. Like, so he calls me and he just tells me all about this, and I'm in the middle of a job site, and I'm just like screaming, just I'm ecstatic for this whole situation. But like it all boils back down to what you're talking about is like network.
But
Ask,
the thing is, I will
interact.
say this is like you just asked, but you're very inviting.
Yeah.
That is not normal.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're like I said, you're genuine and you're inviting. Like you just it just says, hey Tyson, ask me anything you want because I'm here. And
Yeah.
that doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And I
that's
see it
a
in
huge-
Logan, I see it in you. I try to be that way, but it's some people are just like, I'm so busy, don't bother me right now.
Yeah, sure.
You're crazy busy, but you
Right.
will drop everything to talk to someone.
Yeah.
And that's not normal.
Yeah, I believe that you lead with value and you ask nothing in return. And then ultimately you get a lot more in return. I mean, you really do get more in return. I get referrals all the time. But you just lead with value. There's nothing, you just like, hey, I made an intro and led with value, and there's nothing that ever comes back, and it's totally great.
So let me ask you a question to kind of follow up with that, because like human nature, I think most people want, like you inherently kind of like, what's in it for me? Like that, like I feel like that kind of like is in the back of your mind
Sure.
most of the time, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get to that point where you're I want to help without
Philanthropy.
how do you get to
Yeah.
that, like I want to help but without expecting, like legitimately without expecting anything
Yeah.
in return? Because I mean like, that doesn't happen overnight, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. But what I've learned is, like, I have a company that I'm part of. It's called Tax Hive, right? And we do taxes for business owners. And so I make all these intros, and all of a sudden they're like, I remember Shawn. He's the tax company guy. I'm
Yeah.
going to go. I got a referral from him because someone needs tax. I want to be there's a book called Who Not How, which is like entrepreneurs ask themselves the wrong questions. Like, how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I do that? Versus like, who can do this for me?
What
Right?
was I just saying that? It's
Yeah.
not good luck, it's who luck.
Who luck?
Who luck. It's like
Yeah.
people are
Who?
talking about like, hey, good luck.
Yeah.
No, it's who luck. It's like I know this person.
Yes.
He's made me lucky.
Yeah, so I end up being that because I'm at the forefront of their mind that I paid them a service, and I don't keep score, don't keep track. But what I found is it is a law of reciprocity. There's a real, it's not like a suggestion of it. It's a real law that if you put it all out there and you don't worry about all that other stuff like keeping score or I need to get it back, you end up getting so much more back than you ever expect, right? It's just, it's not a guideline.
Well, it's got to
a
be
law.
super fulfilling too.
Yeah.
And that's why I have 6 kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is what we're talking about.
Yes,
Like,
I love it.
super good-hearted message, and then like
I gave
Tyson.
so much.
Yeah. Got much back,
You'll-
more back than you expected.
You'll
right?
notice when you watch this episode back, we regularly blow out the mics with the laughter.
Yeah.
So- but no, I love that. I love that you're like harping on like it's a law. Like, I mean, I'm kind of a firm believer almost in kind of like the law of attraction situations too.
Yeah.
I've experienced that a lot in my life,
Yeah.
and I feel like that applies in the same situation of we talked about this in the beginning of the more you put out, the more you're going to get back of
Yeah.
the same like. And so I'm trying to be like that, and this is very kind of like invigorating to hear you say that, because it's hard to like want to help people. It's not hard to want to help people, but it's hard to help people sometimes and not think like, oh, what am I missing out on? Or like, what am I, sacrificing to be here or whatever. And, at the end of the day, it's fulfilling if you go about it with the right mindset. So I like that.
The hardest thing I ever have to give up, and this is so not true, was going to not seeing a BYU TCU football game when they were playing Mountain West the first time. It was my anniversary. And I had to give up that game so I could go be with my wife. It was so
You're probably thinking about the game the whole time. Just like, yeah.
But I gave it up.
Yeah.
You're such a good guy.
Yeah. I'm amazed at what intros like. I have this guy. He's an electrical contractor, and of course he's my who for that, right? So I have another guy who comes along. He's like, oh, I need some electrical help on these apartments. So I was like, hey,
You really
Mike.
do know everyone.
yeah, Mike, hey, you guys should meet and chat. And then I totally forgot about it. You just kind of move on. And then I went and played disc golf with Mike like a while later, and he's like, hey, thanks for that intro. And I was like trying to remember which one. And he's like, oh yeah, so-and-so Brian, you introduced me to. I was like, oh yeah, how'd that go? And he's like, well, I got the contract. And I was like, what did that contract mean for you personally, like in your business? And he said 150 grand net.
Wow.
And it was like this one intro, but it was because, the riches are made in the follow-up. So he actually followed up. He went to lunch with the guy, got the bid, then made $150,000 from this one thing I forgot in a text. Right. So there's so much power, and you can make so much money if you do it right.
It's an expensive text.
Yeah.
That's cool though.
It's expensive text if he doesn't respond and doesn't follow up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many good taglines you've dropped on this episode, like the the powers and the follow up and things like that. Like,
Yeah.
this is
This is not the episode I was expecting.
no, but
This
it's
is so much more.
sometimes
thank
the
you.
best episodes are just riffing. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. Like but like I said, you can scale up, you can scale down, you can make it fit when you open yourself up to the the possibility of like, maybe I need to learn something different. Maybe I need to do something different. Like, cause that's one thing I've learned. I mean, I'm new to the entrepreneurial world. Like I've done side gigs before where it was kind of like, maybe cash, right?
Right.
But like actually forming an LLC with Tyson and doing this stuff and him being in it, 4+ years with Copper
Yeah.
Johns in the barbershop. And then, like having a conversation with another graphic designer that we prepaid some stuff. And then I'm like, talking to her about, how we're going to do this. And she's like, you can't just like expect this. Like, and so then it's like, we should have had an agreement first. Like, and that was like, that like went right over my head. And so these are all things that I'm realizing as a brand new entrepreneur, and all these other aspects of my life too, of like fatherhood, friendship, spouse, is the more I'm willing to allow myself to be taught something, the more my life improves, because when I thought I had everything else figured out, my life was falling apart. Like when I thought I had, like when I was like, no, like unwilling to take advice, I was tripping everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is
same experience. Yeah.
this is very inspiring for me. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess we've been doing this for longer.
I don't even keep
How long
time.
has it been going? Okay.
Yeah.
But before we end, is there anything that you feel like would be pressing that, just our listeners, any advice you would give them about life, like just things that you've gone through? We've talked, I really think the networking and hey, I'm struggling, network. Hey, I need money, network. I need to find a business partner, network.
Yeah.
I need a new job, network.
I really like what you guys are doing, because I think it gives men permission to be emotional and lead with it and be okay with talking about the hard things in front of people. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so I think what we talked about today is right on the money for people watching the shows. Like, hey, get out of your way and go. Like, a lot of men, as we know, live a life of quiet desperation, and they keep it all in and they bury it because we're taught to bury it. Don't let them see you sweat. like hide that stuff. But the fact, I think the reason why you've had so many views, which is miraculous, and that's why I said you guys are going to, I just see the path in front of you is so amazing, because you're getting this, because it's relatable, is what you said, people watching it, because they're like, oh, it's okay to talk about this stuff. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that, you know, the distance traveled from your heart to your head, and vice versa. It's like, that's so important. So just go out there, build relationships. Don't stay in it alone. Don't live that life of quiet desperation. Actually go have energy, love your family, love what you do, go meet people, and you'll end up making a lot more money.
I freaking love that.
I do. And what's funny is he says this, and it's so much harder. Like I preach this. Like we preach this all the time. And then the other day I'm hiding something from my wife because I don't want her to feel the pressure that I'm feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm telling everyone, be vulnerable with your wife. Tell them the truth, all this kind of stuff. And here I'm like, so I stop what I'm doing and I go talk to my wife, and now she's stressed too. but no, I'm just joking. Not kind of. But it really does help to be vulnerable with your wife, and so that they know, because you're not hiding crap.
Yeah.
They can see it. They just don't know why.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I really, really appreciate this. This has meant a lot.
Man. You know, your example you shared earlier about that young guy that's married a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so cool that you had that interaction, and
Me
he was
too.
willing to ask you for help, because he looks at you as been married a long time. It's like, I'm struggling, and think about the benefit he got because he was willing to ask for some advice.
And that was because of you. You created that event. You created that place that was a safe place for men to feel that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, people who are listening now, they're like, I want that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all they have to do is start talking.
Yeah.
That's all they have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you marry this person, or you're with this person, or you're with your friends. Just be vulnerable, and it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wear the hats you want to wear, even if they make fun of you.
Hey, I think it works well for you.
I appreciate it.
But this is one thing I want to highlight on this, and then we'll wrap it up, is that we've all seen the social media ads and the posts and stuff talking about motivation and discipline and buy my course and I'll teach you how to do this or whatever. Not that I'm slamming on that. If that works for you, great. But this is where I feel why we want to talk to guys like Shawn and everyone else that we brought on the show, is because we want to give guys that. We want to give people that, men, women, anybody alike, but then also turn around and show, like, but at the same time, we're still working on this. Mm-hmm. I texted Tyson before this event that I went with you guys with the first one in Pleasant Grove. I was like, I was the only dude there wearing a swim shirt. And I was so self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
I was the same.
But like literally nobody cared.
Right.
And so it's like, we tout, you know, like confidence and build yourself up and take care of yourself, all that stuff. But then I still have my struggles. Sure, I'll throw myself on social media all day long, but like at the end of the day, like I'm still get the ick from watching myself sometimes.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, my takeaway from this episode and with you guys is this, that like as long as you're trying, and as long as you're trying to improve yourself, improve the lives of those that you love and just those around you, like you're doing 99% more than a lot of other people out there. So like give yourself that leg up. And I love that you said, if you take anything from this episode, because we try to end every episode with a challenge. So I'm going to reiterate that, is that you know, if you are, whether it's your business or your personal life or even at church, because I was a back pew guy forever, believe it or not. And so go sit in the center of the room, introduce yourself to somebody and ask, who can you introduce me to for whatever is your need right now? So that's been like, I love these episodes that blow by, because I just feel like I'm just learning so much. And
I forgot that the people were even listening, because
I know.
so much into it. But we will post everything that you post of ours with Ignition Point.
Yeah.
And I
appreciate that.
I'm
very
really
much.
looking forward. So everyone just go check him out. There'll be the link, his links and everything will be in the bio, right?
Yeah.
And
so
his picture and his everything. So
yeah. So you guys on Dad Bods and Beards through TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you'll find the link, the Comey.io link, where you can find all of Shawn's information with everything that you're doing with Tax Hive and your podcast, Ignition Point, as well as you can now see our new sponsor, Bucked Up, and the Dad Bods and Beards merch. And last, one more and is Patreon, but bear in mind that we're new to Patreon.
We're learning it.
And we're adding these to it. I think we've got 3 subscribers.
And I'm sitting here trying to post and I can't.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how I can.
Tommy's back there getting extra behind the scenes footage and stuff like that for us for that. So Thank you, guys. We will touch back next week. I've got a pretty fun one that we've got planned. Her name's Danny. She's coming on, and that one's going to be a very impactful one.
Yeah.
So thank you, Shawn.
But you're always
Thank you
welcome,
very
man.
much. I appreciate it. It's an honor. Thank you, guys.
We'll catch you next week.
Yep.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. It means the world to us. If you have a chance, please give us a 5-star review, as well as write something a little pretty in there so that we know that you know that we know that you care. Anyway, have a great day, guys. See, I can't do it.
Dude, that was good. I liked that. You can't redo it without laughing. That was good.